All right, but yeah, I was actually having writer's block at the moment, just like in terms of creating some good content. That I kind of want to just start doing for writing, not for video. Um, but yeah, so this one's just out of pure emotion, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my personal tips and what has worked for me in terms of content creation for writing and videos, and yeah. So just to point out quickly, this isn't the keys to everything. This is just the keys for me. So this is what has worked for me, and I just want to share that out with you. So I'm just going to be authentic there. And then two, as I mentioned, I'm going to define certain things, and yeah, some things may trigger people and whatever. It's like that's okay. Just going to point out my 2 cents, and then um, whatever you think will help you, or whatever you think that okay, that makes sense, perfect. And whatever that doesn't, also perfect. You do you. It's your life. But yeah, and this doesn't just involve like with content creation, although it's like the points maybe a little bit more specific. But this can definitely apply to everything else if you think about it, because all things are delicately interconnected. That's what I like. Is everything in some way down to its most fundamental things? They're tied to each other, right? Anyways, let's start since I have my notes right here. So the first thing that I would definitely want to say is this, and this is gonna these points. Some of these points are gonna be ironic because you could probably make a meme out of them in the comment section or whatever. But um, the first thing I would definitely say is if you don't have really anything to say, please don't. Like, just don't say it, because something that I do that I will have noticed is especially with YouTube channels some YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to or that I was subscribed to, they would make content like almost every single day, and not almost every single day, or at least maybe like 3 times a week. And what I realized is like I think I had like 17 channels that I was following, and then it was down to two. So I'm only have like 2 channels that I follow and I get updates from that make content almost every single day. But those are like they have something to say about, like they got something to tell me. But the rest we're just doing it either because like they had to keep themselves where they were at the position, so they really weren't bringing anything that much to the table. So it's the same thing with video creation, with the newsletter and writing, whatever. It's like if you don't have anything to provide, or if you don't have anything to give to the table, it's better not to. You're shredding your reputation. It's like, oh, okay, this guy's just giving out garbage, rather than giving us something that is meaningful. And some cases, it's actually good to be making a lot of content, especially if you're trying to tone and get the skill better. Because when you do start out, which is another point that I have here, but I might as well say it right now. When you're trying to develop a skill that you have never done before, so let's say drawing, say you're a noob at drawing, okay? Well, it does make sense for you to, do a lot of drawing and maybe even make it publicly. Like, you build in public, grow in public. So there may be someone who, may want to see like, oh, you're doing this. Let me help you, or like, let me get you to the next step. And maybe if you have like some NFT business, like, and you want to build it in public, it's like perfect. Someone finds you, someone can give you a connection to another connection that can get you, maybe grant or an offer or a mentor. Perfect. That works as well. Or maybe even like, you're trying to learn how to ski and like, I don't know, maybe you become the next Sean White. Fine. That works as well. Anything's possible. If you stick to one thing, which is another thing I'll come back. But yeah, when you're starting to build out and tone a skill, especially with writing, is you want to do a lot of repetition. So it's like with building games, you get under the bar and do the reps. And volume at this point is what matters. Like, because when you start, you have no skill at it. So what you want to do is you want to do a lot of reps, a lot of volume. And yes, the quality will be absolutely crap. But at least for right now, it's the quantity or the volume that's going to matter, because you realize like, oh, okay, I have to improve this, and also just getting into the habit of doing it. That's a lot of important things. So at least in that point, volume will triumph the quality, or quantity will triumph the quality. Once you start getting that skill better, then quality will start to matter because you've been doing it many times. So the effort to do it will require less, and now it will just be okay. More, how do I tone the skill? It's the same thing with for those who need a better example, I'll give you a gym example because I don't know. I did a video a few days ago on gym. So with gym, for example, when you're a noob, okay, you're a beginner, you're probably a twig or you're cookie dough. Um, when you start out, obviously thinking of nutrition, like obviously water, nutrition, and all that stuff, that's the more important stuff. But let's say we have that down, okay? Assuming you have good amount of sleep, water, and a good nutrition protocol down. So now let's go to the training section. When you're training, when you start out, you will definitely be a noob. You probably don't even know how to control your own weight for squat. Okay. Um, so with there, it's okay. You just have to start with volume and do it like properly. Like you can't just be, like a complete idiot. You don't want to hurt yourself. It's the same thing with anything else. It's like you want to have someone who at least is guiding you through it, so you don't have to commit every single mistake yourself. Because that's the worst thing to do with your life is, not learning from other people, from their failures and their from their L's and their dubs. Okay. Because the worst thing you could ever do is have to do every single mistake yourself. Like, so, like go make, yeah, another thing is like just go make friends and go make mentors. So like you kind of learn from them, like learn from their mistakes and also learn from their dubs, like their successes. And that's another way of like of knowing or seeing something bad without you actually having to go through it, because now you know what it is, so you don't have to go there and do it all yourself. But yes, when you start out, you're just going to be an absolute noob. So you're going to have to do a lot of reps, a lot of repetitions, and just getting into the habit of just doing it. And then once you start getting better at it, then you realize, okay, now we can start improving. Like, so volume would be a lot more important. And then now you realize, okay, now I know a lot of these things. Now I maybe can switch it up a little bit more. So like intensity, like the intensity of your workout. Maybe it's like sprints instead of like walk. Okay. And then maybe for like weights, it would be more like drop set instead of doing, like maybe 3x10 of body. Like now we're ramping up intensity, where the quality of your sets are going to matter a lot more. So you don't have to do that many reps. But now it's like you're limiting the reps, but the reps that you do must be of high quality. They must be good shit. Okay. So that's the same thing with like content writing, or just like anything in general. Like you're definitely gonna have to just do a lot more reps of this thing. But once you get better at it, you decrease the amount that you do, and whatever is left, you do it to the best of your ability, because now you have the skills to do so. So there's no excuse, at least there. Okay. And so another thing that I wanted to point out here was this. The skills will always have to change. Okay. Because as you grow older, obviously your beliefs will change, except for the ones that like fundamentally true to you. Because getting the skills and anything else from writing and anything else in life, like what I've noticed is going from 0 to 1 will not, the skills and just the skills, the habits and whatever, and the beliefs that got me from 0 to 1 only works for 0 to 1. So, and everyone can decide what 0 to 1 is. Okay. So, if you're off in a better place, when you're in a better place to start than someone else, then of course your 0 to 1 may change. And that's also the level of standard that you have. So, everyone's like standard of where you begin to feel like crap will change individually for everyone. So that's also that. So also another thing is like the skills and stuff will always constantly be updated. And as you get higher up there, your problems will just change. Like you'll be upgraded with better problems. It's not like you don't have problems anymore. Just that your problems they're upgraded, or like they're they're much better to have, I would say. Like they're more valuable problems than the problems that you would probably have when you're just like at 0.1 versus like maybe 2.3. Like those are better problems, I guess, to have, because now you have the capacity to handle those problems. So yeah, and yes, just put your time under the bar, and getting those reps and getting the volume out for start seeing those things. The next thing was be authentic when you write, because as I mentioned, if you are copying someone else, then you don't really have anything to add. Then that's when you should probably like zip it. And there's gonna be a few people who are like, well, wait, but I don't know how to start. Like I don't know how to write this thing. So here's the caveat here, and here's a little loophole that I use personally, for my ebook, which for me I'll also discuss a little bit about it later. But so basically, what I did in that ebook was I imitated the style that someone wrote, for the first 20 articles of the Nano Stories. For those who don't know what my Nano Stories is, just basically like some my online publication site on Medium, where it's like I just said, okay, this is the fundamentals of a certain material, and I'll explain a little bit later about that. But yes, you have to imitate and do it as good as that person, or even better. If you could do better, then now you're ready to like change things of their old format to make it your own style. But here's the thing, not the content. Your content must be your own. The style can be replicated or even like sort of copied. And then once can do it as good as them or even better, that's when okay, you must change the style format. So for example, like you're making a YouTube video, like you can't just copy the content and like maybe package it a little bit better, or make it more fancy mancy bullshit. Like no. What you could do is like maybe like use the same equipment that they have, or maybe the same lighting, or perhaps maybe like the way they present their videos or how they introduce themselves. But overall, the content has to be your own, and it has to be authentic. And these are two mini points, or actually just one mini point, but I like to think of them as two. But one is, why would you want to make content that you really don't give a shit about? I don't make content about things that are trending, or that like or it would just be good clickbait things. Like I don't care. Like I don't care. I wouldn't have the drive to actually like sit down, write the notes of what I want to get out in the video, and like upload this stuff. It's like I don't. And what's it called? And when I make these videos, either it's because it's either because of emotion, like I want to do this, and just get it out, or B, I'm just like I need a mental note, like a mental note for myself, but I also want to make sure that it's public. So like initially, I do these things from 80% of the content that I do is for myself, and then 20% it is for others. And for the others, when I do it for others, it's like the content, the way that I present it is going to be a little bit more cleaner than others. I think my most popular video on my channel, I made it for others, which was like slideshows and a loom video recording that was downloaded. But like these videos with crappy lighting and such, and like using a phone as a microphone because my computer audio doesn't work, and like like you can't even see my face properly, but that's okay. But yeah, it's like I'm just doing these for in the moment, and like because I also want to keep myself a mental note, a reminder, and maybe one day be like, yo, that was you. Like I'm cringing at myself. Or also just like seeing like, okay, how was I thinking, and then also just like to reflect on. Because sometimes I do listen back to myself and say, okay, what could I have said better, and also like what were some points that I missed, and also like how was I presenting these things? Because this is public, which is also another thing that I want to bring up, which was kind of like this second ish tip was whenever you put something public, careful with the way you use those words because that is kind of defining you. So like um certain phrases like everything involves like I, me, my, um, yeah, like those things. Um, those you must be very careful because you're basically defining yourself as you do it. So for example, it's like saying I eat a lot of junk food. It's like, yeah, okay, so we know that you're probably gonna be a fat ass soon. It's like, or like, or you could say I'm a bit unorganized when it comes to time management. You're just basically defining as like, okay, you're probably not the best person to ask or to even, like give give people things or stuff that involve your time because then you're probably going to screw it up. So be careful there, and especially when you're writing, it's like, especially if it's in the first perspective of you, it's like, do those things actually benefit me? Like, are they a good image of me online or when I speak in person? Because that's what kind of sticks to you. That's what people kind of do remember. It's like the I. It's like, like when you can say I am religious. Okay. So and most people will remember this. Like, okay, he's religious. And you got to remember that. Or that's things that they will remember the most. So like, so yeah, just be careful every time you might want to say me or I or yeah, just anything with I pretty much. Like those are very powerful because that's you're giving them like a definition of what you are and who you are. So that's also another thing I've learned from writing this thing. So I'm going to screen share now, and this is where I will continue with my tips. But this is what I have at the moment. So you guys are going to get to see a little bit of my creations ish. But yeah, so this is what I have. So this was the All in Glory stuff. And this is another thing is like I'm proud. I am proud to present this to anyone. This is something that I feel is worthy enough to share. And I will be honest, for the past 5 months, because I pretty much have just been exploring, which has allowed me a lot to reflect and see where I do want to go, figure out what I find interesting. But like, I probably wouldn't want to talk about that because it's not like I've done things, but it's just something those things I just don't like. I wouldn't be proud of saying that. I think. Yeah. That's not. I think it is like because for me, at least for me, it has. I feel like it just won't stick. And like as I mentioned previously, like the I statements. Um, and I will be honest there. It's like those few things that I've done, like it definitely has helped me. I just don't think it's something that like I would immediately say like, oh yeah, I did something in the past 5 months. But exploring is important, at least for this age. And just remember, for any ambitious kid out there, it's like, especially if you're under 18, like you got plenty of time. This is the perfect time to take all the risks without having to endure the consequences, as long as it doesn't involve destroying the fundamentals like your mind, your body, your spirit, like your energy. Don't get rid of those. It's called, but yeah. So this is the All in Glory. So this is all the goody goodies that you can ever have. So and it's very specific because I also put it in the intro. the preface of what this is, so that when people go through, it's like, okay, what are we going to face? So here are some things that I have written that I do think that might be a little bit useful for anyone. Is I actually made this for myself because I needed somewhere, someplace to store information that I think would be valuable as I continued on this journey of material science, and now just looking more into nanotechnology and other branches of materials science like materials informatics, just to see. Because for me, what's it called? I will need a base. I will need a base of a foundation of where I can acquire the knowledge in case if I do forget or if I want to return and just like, catch up on things. Like, I don't know if you can check my tabs, but the tab on the far left, that's actually where, I'm strengthening my bases of my chemistry. Because as I mentioned, the base, the basics and the base of your skill pyramid, just a skill pyramid, not life pyramids. Life pyramid's way more important than skill pyramid. But skill pyramid specifically, most basics are the most important because that's where everything is. So, and I practice those basics almost all the time because those are the most important things. Because if I have a weak base, like it's like building a house on like sand, shit, or mud, like shit like that. Because one mudslide and the whole thing's coming down. But if I have very strong foundation for that house, yeah, blow the house away if you want, but I still have the base where I can just rebuild the house. So I didn't lose anything. I mean, yeah, maybe I lost the property, but I didn't lose where it should be. So all I have to do is just build it back up. Pretty much easy like that. And this, what I consider, is a very good strong base. And yeah, what's called? I'm not worried about me going away for as long as I know, but what's it called? I might want to just recopy this or something and put it somewhere else, but grateful for this, for the space. And but yeah, that's another thing. Right? Get the basics down and do it very important. And another thing is like you can tell the difference between something that you did for yourself versus something that you're trying to do for something else. Or like, maybe you're doing it for a different incentive. When you do things of pure, like at least for this video, pure emotion, it's the truth, my authenticity. But I could have, structured this for 2 weeks and like, been digging through stuff. That wouldn't be me. That would just be, like maybe a desperation, maybe just like for, like acceptance or views or like, like social validation or whatever. No, it's like, because, it would have been, the lighting would have been way better. I would have brightened my face up a little bit, make you all jealous, but but yeah. And what's it called? And as I mentioned, if you do have problems with like, how do I make this stuff authentic? Copy the structure of someone you genuinely like, not the content. The content must be your own, but you can copy the structure of how they do it. And once you do it as good as them and better than them, you must reiterate. Can't keep it the same. That's not you. That's just a good thing. It's like having, the the extra wheels on the bicycle. You get there, figure out your own twist, then you gotta take them off. You must take them off. Otherwise, not you, you're not taking off. And as I mentioned, yep. And what's it called? For content, value is better than just being in a rush. Like for feedback, don't ask for feedback if you rushed. What's it called? You shouldn't. You just shouldn't be asking for feedback when you know it wasn't the best quality. The exception is when you're starting out. You definitely need as much feedback as you can because you're building up the volume. It's like like of course you're gonna suck, but you might as well might as well ask for help. But like once you do have the skills, but it's not your best work, just please don't ask for feedback. It's like what are they supposed to do? Just tell you like get better or actually not do it in a rush? Put some consideration into it. That because there really is nothing to argue or discuss about. Okay. Now for the good stuff, I'm going to open up one of the articles. I'm going to go through a little bit in terms of content, just like content, and then maybe of like, let's say you're in explore mode. This is maybe specifically just for explore mode people. And then I'll go into a little bit of more on if you're currently in a focus and you just want to get stuff out. So I'm just going to open up, porosity. Why did you make my aerogel break? So this is kind of still, like mimicking the structure of some. And so yeah, as you can see here, these were just some equations that, I was still wrapping my head over. And you can see all of this here, which was like just understanding the particle densities in silica aerogel. I used GIFs at the time because I thought it would be fun. And yeah, for those who don't know, sorry that I scrolled down, but basically the porosity is just like the emptiness inside a material or a substance. In this case, it was aerogel, and aerogel is 99.8% air, so the porosity is very high because it's basically 99. Well, that's the most extreme, but if we were taking it to the extreme, which it has, the most extreme would be 99.8% porosity. It's like literally empty space. The rest of it is just these particles and the particle densities equations that have been brought up here. Which also talk a little bit about how the empty porosity can also create like the reason why these silica aerogels can break. It's also because like the surface contact, it's not strongly bonded to each other. That's a different story. But as you can see, it looks like some child wrote it. And I was just copying an author who a parent's friend of mine who's an author of children's books. I just got one of his books and copied the structure of that, how he wrote it. This was my own stuff. Now fast forward that. Let's go with sol gel chemistry. So it's A6. And yep. So this is sol gel processing. So basically sol gel, it's a solution and you get a gel. It's aerogel. Aerogel is just basically it's like solid jello, but not like bouncy jello. It's like hard jello. Depending on what aerogel you get, because there's different types. But from as you can see, the time length was around 3 to 7 minutes. And this is another thing that I do want to point out is in terms of increasing value for whatever you write, and especially if it's something you like, try and make it as much specific as you can so you can increase the value that you give to a person. Because you do want to make a person feel like, wow, this is what I've been looking for all this time. Because here's the example, and I'll use my ebook. So I could have made 100 nanostories of chemistry. There's plenty of shit on chemistry. There's Khan Academy. There's the organic chemistry tutor. There's textbooks. There's your teachers. So what would this do? Probably nothing. But now let's take it a step further. I would say organic and sol gel chemistry. Now we're going maybe university level. So this would increase in value. But as I mentioned, there's plenty of YouTube videos. There's plenty of textbooks. And there are plenty of old professors in the teacher's lounge with their newspapers. If they decide to open the door and let you question. Okay, but yeah, it does increase in value. But now we could say, now we're going to say it is for nanomaterial sol gel chemistry. Nanomaterial sol gel chemistry, and also nanomaterial organic chemistry. Now we're going even more depth. So now the value has just it has increased a lot more. Now I'm going to take it to the next step where we can say, okay, now we're talking about a specific nanomaterial, which in this case was aerogel. And we said, okay, aerogel, sol gel chemistry for silica and organic aerogel products with high porosity. And yes, there may not be a lot of people who are working on that, but the people who are, Jesus Christ, you just increase the value to like 100x. That's the power of picking something that you genuinely like and giving it tremendous amount of value. So another example. This one's not my example. The next one isn't my example. The previous one was. This is another one. So let's say you are doing weight loss. Okay, fine. Plenty of weight loss stuff. There's a liposuction, which like you would definitely have no chance against, but okay, which is just the beginning. Okay, but now you said okay, weight loss for a woman. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more specific, and then we would say weight loss for weight loss for 40 weight loss for pregnant woman or something like that. And you'd be like, okay, now we're going way more specific. So this is definitely getting niche. Then what's it called? And then you could be like, for and then weight loss for women who are working a full-time job, who don't have the time, and are also pregnant. Okay, now we're just shrinking. We're kind of like going more specific. We're just getting more specific, but the value to whoever that is tremendously high. And bonus points if you want to put a price on it, because it's way more specific. It's going to be a lot more value, because now like these people feel like this stuff was for me, so of course they're going to buy it, or at the very least, if it's free, they're going to be like, I'm definitely using this shit. It felt like it was just for me, which is very important. So that was one thing. And at least for articles, because this is where I started off, most of my articles, with the exception of maybe 5, are between 3 to 7 minutes long. Why? Because I've noticed when I started writing out, the people who click the most preferred the articles between that time length. I only extended to 6 or 7 minutes if I really had to. Like it was a complicated topic, but it must be explained this way. But the majority of them, as you like the one in front of you, it's just 4 minutes, and just like it's a nice, easy introduction to the soul jail chemistry, and make it simple. People love a simple and direct story, and make it funny, so that like those 4 minutes feel like, okay, it's interesting, it's funny, so this guy's got a sense of humor. He's not his computer all the time, and then also like actually give a lot of value, also in a short amount of time. So like the definitions, and explain, okay, what would be a element in a compound, what's called, anyhow, those are just some. And for this photo right here, the compound one, the pure substance, it's red and blue on top, just like the combination. And then homogeneous, heterogeneous. So homogeneous, just basically there's like order and it's evenly distributed. Heterogeneous isn't. Homogeneous, one example could be like Gatorade or Powerade or beer. I don't know, but Gatorade and Powerade. A heterogeneous mixture would be kind of like like soup or cereal. There will be more Cheerios or whatever on one side than the other. But yeah, those are just some things of that. But yeah, but as I mentioned, everyone likes like short things. Because one, you save a little bit, you save their time also, and also the time. The time. What people what I see a lot of people doing is with writing is like they want to increase like this desired what desired outcome you want once you're done reading. But what I thought to myself was, okay, how can I what if I just decrease the amount of time it took them to get that out? Because yes, there are good articles out there that are 11, 12 minutes, but I told myself, okay, how can I give them that little value, that amount of value in just a short amount of time? Because for them it's like, okay, 4 minutes of time, probably a very easy sacrifice. They could probably do it in like, their passing period from one call to another. If you're working at home, maybe it's like a good 4 minute article break before you have to hop onto your next Zoom call. And then maybe if you're on your free period or whatever, and you accidentally stumble into this, it's good. Maybe an article a day. It's 4 minutes. Doesn't take that much. But also, it's like the amount of effort it takes. It's like, okay, I learned something quickly and an interesting way where it sticks to my head. But also, you're not necessarily sacrificing anything. It's like, what's it called? You can just like get it on here, and what's it called? No homework. If you just want to read it for the sake of reading, go ahead. I made it like that just in case if people randomly stumble into it, or they're like, or before a call they're like, yo, I read your stuff, it was good, which you probably might not remember, but hey, it got you, a spark or two. That's good. So yeah, that's also another thing. And just I would definitely say, instead of trying to like, I mean, it's good to have um positive visualization of what you want, but if you can decrease the amount of time to get the same valued outcome as maybe a 12-minute article, or how much effort they have to do to actually understand it. Because look, like when you put in a bunch of math and shit, everyone's like, I need to put in effort. So I try and decrease the amount of math. And if I do have to add math to it, how can I explain it in a way where they don't where they have to do the minimum amount of effort possible to understand it? And that's what kind of gains the interest. It's like, oh, she understands me. I'm an idiot. So let's teach it as if I was teaching it to an idiot. So it's kind of like, or like a 5-year-old, you get offended easily. But yeah, that's also another thing. It's like, how can I decrease the time to get the message through, but also like reduce how much effort I have to do, or not I have to do, but the reader has to do to understand what I want to say, whether you are trying to learn or not. Okay, that's another thing. And then, as I mentioned, speak about things you genuinely have an interest. Look, I genuinely care about this. So this is why, like I did like maybe 2 or 3 times of like, oh, maybe this isn't that well thought out, or maybe the resources weren't good enough, to have a follow up, or also like how I wanted to structure this, like like even how to do that 2021 all rights reserved, stuff like that, because I don't want people like shit. But yeah, like yeah, you'll definitely have this passion to keep going, and you shouldn't stop at it either. So but yeah, so let me, what's it called? I'm just gonna come back out here, and as I mentioned, now that we're, what's it called? And also the final thing that I also wanted to put here was this is for writing. These are just writing tips now, but just like for nonfiction stuff, you want to leave the reader with one thought per paragraph, or actually not even one thought per paragraph, one thought at the end of the entire article. So they have like, because look, fair enough, you could say, oh, you have a bazillion questions, but the point, you're trying to just get one point. The the main reason why we write an article is to get one good point, or one specific point, to the reader and be like, we're gonna reinforce this into your brain, into your belief system. You're like, this is what's gonna stick with me, or at least I will consider it. Okay. So if the reader does leave with like 3 or 4, like basically if they end up with more than one thought, you failed, or you did something wrong. Because if the reader ends up with like 2 or 3 thoughts, that would have been 2 or 3 extra articles. You're trying to just get one point across, which is why, like, like these, um, yeah, it just makes it a little bit more complicated, but it's not as difficult as it seems. As I mentioned, just find that niche. And also, with another thing is about picking one thing is, when it comes to just writing an article or whatever that you're doing, is if you have a lot of things that you want to talk about, just pick, like, just pick one. Think of each article as if it was going to be read by Elon Musk, or like, actually, no, 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 because especially when you're reading, and especially if you're doing it for yourself, literally just think that no one's gonna read. If you're stuck with like having to start off, it's like, think that no one's gonna watch. and then you'll definitely pull out your biggest work, because now you're just doing it for the value. You're just doing it for the value, not for something else. And then you'll see like, wow, the value you give out is going to be a lot better than if you had the constant thought of your mind of someone's going to watch this, right? But if you're specifically having this battle, what to pick, think of it as if it was going to, be world recognized, like world renowned. Any of them can be world renowned. You just got to pick one. And mostly, I would just say pick the one that you generally have the most interest, or that you rent, just like the way I'm renting right now. That's what will generate, or at least just start with. So like if you have this dilemma of, maybe like if you want to make a movie or whatever, it's like you have all these 5, 6 topics. It's like pick one, like just pick one. Maybe just use a coin or whatever. It's like do that. That's another thing. And yeah, and last tip. The first sentence is pretty much the hook of every paragraph. You lose the reader in the most. I don't have a number, but I would, I would say that most articles fail, or don't get the reaction that it wanted to get, because the first 2 sentences lost the reader. So that's that. And also, it's like, what type of emotion do you want to project in your article? Now I mentioned emotion. I was like, I might as well say this, but what emotion do you want to bring out in your article? Is it the holy shit, my mind's blown, or a confirmation of okay, or something like turmoil, as in like, okay, let's, like a hot take, something like that. Like, what emotion are you trying to bring out of the reader? Because that's what you might want to tie your article into. So at least for me, it was like, like leaving, like at least for me with the nano stories that I have here, it was like to leave you with a thought and just like say, oh wow, I learned something new. Like, especially if like this is the niche that you have, like nanomaterials, material science, and then maybe even more specifically, if you're into aerogems, like this will give you that extra little push of niche. But yeah, so those are all the things at least I have at the moment, and I tell you, I could definitely rant on this for a good while. Like there's so many lessons that I've learned, and as I'm trying to, not not necessarily, I wouldn't say not necessarily start another nano stories, but like continue to write about material science while I start developing my second big project that I would be definitely worthy about. Actually, my third big project that would definitely be worthy of talking about, which I'm currently battling with materials informatics and a different branch of material science, because I do think that what's it called? I would want to be the person who contributes value, but also has the tools to give other people value. So like, as in a gold mine, where like you could be the guy going for gold, but what if you sold the shovels instead? Like, I kind of want to be that person in the shovels, but also giving the value to other people to do what they came for intention. But as in terms for like founding maybe a company, I wouldn't necessarily say I would be that person, at least not yet, because I want to be the person who builds value, not like I want to be the person who is on the front lines of the next generation of materials. I wouldn't necessarily say want to be the person who owns the company, because as I mentioned, or at least what I'd like to think is this: if you want to be the person who wants to run the company, then that's what you should do. If you want to be the person who makes the stuff, then that's what you should do. I mean, it shouldn't be that complicated. But yeah, and yeah, those are all the things that I have in mind. But if I do have another section of that, I'll definitely bring that out. And as I mentioned, I'll keep making some videos, and now I'll get more theme specific. So like maybe I'll talk a little bit about material science on this channel instead of like the common daily thoughts and updates, because I do think those are important, but definitely time for me to share what I do think I find myself more authentic of. But yeah, so those are my things, and see you the next time I feel like making another one. But yeah, see you.